It's Banlist Day! I can't wait to see what new decks are playable!
Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts! I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. I had hoped to spend the next month making videos about the impact of the ban list, but it's pretty much the same shit. I don't know, maybe Yubel is better than snakes. So today we're going to look at one of the only interesting cards that made it off the list. That grass looks greener.
Go and get them, grass man!
This is a card with a lot of applications, so what we're going to do is check out 3 different lists that use the card in 3 different strategies, and then talk about it generally. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. I've been shilling Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck for, well, years at this point, and I'm happy to announce I have no intention of stopping anytime soon. By now, they've become the most complete repository of tournament tops on the internet, the best place to jam prog with friends, and of course, still host strategy articles. Recently, they've added a new piece of infrastructure to the fold, a 3-card arena draft, draftable with card pools featuring classic formats, Master Duel, or within any parameters you like. Give it, or any of their other features, a look at www.ygoprodeck.com. First up is Infernoid. If you've watched 10-Minute Testing for the last couple of months, this shouldn't be too alien to you. We did a video on this when Infernoid Evil was released, and the concept remains the same. The top 2 decks, Snakes and Yubel, have a pretty rough time against graveyard interaction, either by keeping the individual snakes out of the graveyard or by foiling DBB's plans. And given that each Infernoid represents a DD Crow in a pinch, it's a perfect match for the format. Previously, the deck was lacking any way to mill the requisite amount of noids, but after the grass on limit, well, you're just a hop, skip, and a thrust away. Let's go through the individual cards. We've got a Nonku, we've got Deviati, we've got a Flamberge Dragon for a small Snake Eyes package, with an Attendel, a Size-Tamas, a Diabellstar, a Sajet, 3 Fiendsmith, 1 Piatti, 1 Patrula, 1 Harmadic, 1 Antra, Oak, Ash, and Poplar. After that, we've got the 3 Decatron, that's a level 1 fire for those of you counting at home, alongside a Fabled Lurie and a Primios. For spells, we are on the Limited Instant Fusion and 1-for-1, and of course that grass looks greener, alongside the Sinful Spoils of Subversion Snake Eye, 3 Triple Tactics Thrust, a Monster Gate, a Reasoning, Void Reignition, 3 Bonfire, 3 Left Arm Offering, OSS, Dark Fusion, Fiendsmith Tractus, 3 Forbidden Droplet, 3 Wanted, 3 Imagination, 3 Vanishment, and then 1 apiece of Divine Temple of the Snake Eye, Transaction Rollback, and Void Feast. In the extra, we've got Requiem, IP Masquerena, Moon of the Closed Heaven, Fiendsmith Sequentia, Proxy F Magician, SP Little Knight, Heat of the Fire, Charmer Ablaze, Nightmare Phoenix, Promethean Princess, the World Sea Dragon Zelantis, Infernoid Flood, DDD Wave High King Caesar, Infernoid Evil, Entis, and Tierra. So with that, let's jump into a game. Our first match is up against Mimighoul, and I've been assured this is a good deck. Let's see. We're going to begin with a copy of That Grass Looks Greener, and why is my opponent playing 44 cards? Okay, we'll take it. We'll go Ash afterwards. We'll grab a Poplar from deck. Thank goodness it didn't get milled. We'll go Poplar effect, summoning itself and activating its effect to grab a copy of OSS. Then afterwards, we can activate the OSS, sending the Poplar in order to summon a Decatron. That's a level 1 fire, in case you didn't know. We'll go Decatron 1, Poplar 2. We'll set the Poplar and send a copy of Anonka to the graveyard, then fire off this copy of Ash for an Oak. And guess what? The Oak can bring back the Decatron as well. That Decatron effect is a soft once per turn, so we'll fire it again, sending a Deviati to the graveyard this time, before going for Oak in order to make a Flamberge. Both of these to the graveyard for a Moon of the Closed Heaven will trigger the effect of the Flamberge, bringing back the Decatron one more time, sending another Anonku, and then making a copy of Requiem effect into a Fiendsmith. From here, we can go into a sequence, activate the sequence effect, shuffling back 2 of our Infernoids in order to summon an Evil, then activate the effect of the Evil in order to banish a Jet and just mill a million guys. We'll summon back this copy of Fiendsmith and make an IP Masquerena, triggering the graveyard effect of the Evil in order to grab a Void Feast, then make a Promethean Princess in order to bring back the Evil and link off into a Flood. From here, we'll activate Void Imagination, set 1, and then make both Anonku and Deviati on our side of the field before passing back to our opponent. They'll draw for turn, and they have a pretty good grip. They're going to begin with the copy Pot of Extravagance. That's probably fine. Afterwards, they're going to go for Fenrir. That's worth a Flood in my eyes. They'll go Terraforming afterwards to grab the field spell, at which point they will activate it. We will Anonku to negate it and chain the effect of the feast, sending the Imagination so we can get a Sajet and 2 copies of Decatron. New chain, we're going to activate both copies of Decatron in order to translate into both a Spell Trap negate and a Monster negate, sending the Anonku and a Deviati. Our opponent's going to go for a Tactics Talent. We will negate the spell, and then afterwards they're going to go for the effect of the Mimighoul Master, which we will negate with the remaining Decatron. From here, there's not much left. They're going to go for Cerberus, putting it on our side of the field, setting 1 and passing, but we should have it wrapped up from this position. We'll draw for turn. They're going to go IDP, target our Fiendsmith, and then banish it and the Flood. We'll just go ahead and activate the other Fiendsmith in graveyard, putting back the sequence to summon itself, and then make sequence, activating the effect of the sequence in order to shuffle a couple of Infernoids back and make ourselves a very big Tierra. Now, because we used so many materials, Tierra's effect will trigger here, and we will send an Entis to the graveyard, using it to pop our own set copy of Mimighoul Cerberus. They're not going to get an effect off that anyway. We'll go OSS into Wanted to shuffle back the OSS, and this should be all she wrote. I will stop playing with my food momentarily. We're going to send a copy of Anonku into a Requiem effect to go ahead and get a copy of the Fiendsmith. Requiem effect in graveyard, target the Fiendsmith, and this is over lethal. Let's just wrap it up. A quick, clean game 1. Our next deck is for the schmidtz in the audience. This is an adaptation of the boys' Paleozoic list, modified to make use of that grass looks greener. This deck's already fine with playing huge card counts, it just needs to resolve Needlebug Nest, but now in like 2% of games you're going to be able to roll back as early as turn 1. The deck also now features 2 new TCG exclusives, which is incredibly funny, if nothing else. 4 monsters, we are on 3 copies of Absolute King Packjack, 1 Laundry Dragon Maid, triple Magic Colloidal Soul, and triple Soldier Dragons. After that, we've got 1 copy of Volmina, Statue of the Sacred Dragon, the Grass Looks Greener, the Time-Tearing Morganite, and the Trap Tantalizing Tune that have become common in this strategy. 2 Balance of Judgment, 3 Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon, an Elemental Burst, triple Fiend Griefing, triple Ice Dragon's Prison, triple Needlebug Nest, 3 Canadia, 3 Dinomicious, 3 Leoncolia, 3 Morella, 3 Oleanades, 3 Rise to Full Height, 3 Transaction Rollback, 3 Trap Trick, and 3 Waboku. In the extra, we've got Cambro Roster, we've got Sprind, we've got SP Little Knight, IP Masquerena, Relinquished Anima, Typhon, Opabinia, 2 Anomalocaris, 1 copy of Ninja Shadow Mosquito, which is how you steal a lot of games, Gigantic Sprite, Downward Magician, and Double Zeus. So with that, let's jump into a game. Our match is up against Ritual Beast, and this hand is interesting. You can see we have that Grass Looks Greener, which is going to mill the 20 cards necessary here, including a lot of really good ones. We'll go Backjack here to reorder the top of the deck, then go for Soldier Dragons, pass back to our opponent. They're going to begin with a draw of a Spiritual Beast Tamer window. We will set a Fiend Griefing off the Backjack, and they will go for a Tractus. This allows us to use Soldier Dragons to grab a Soldier Dragons. Afterwards, we're going to pitch a copy of Lurie. We'll activate Soldier Dragons in order to summon a copy of Volmina, Statue of the Sacred Dragon, as they link off into Requiem. Requiem effect into Fiendsmith, and from this position, we'll flip up the IDP targeting the Requiem so they don't get access to that line. They'll go Spiritual Beast Tamer Lara here in order to normal this Elder into Window. We will Morella here in order to send a copy of Transaction Rollback, then activate Transaction Rollback targeting the Dinomicious in order to banish the Window and pitch the other Transaction Rollback in hand. They'll go Cannahawk, send a copy of Lara to the banished zone to bring out a Rampangu. Rampangu here is going to send a copy of Apelio to enable a Ulti Nochio Draco, then activate the effect of the Cannahawk and chain the effect of the Cannahawk. Have you seen this combo before? One of those 2 is going back into the graveyard, which means that they will be able to resolve as much as possible of the Cannahawk, including an add of Ritual Beast Bond, and unfortunately they now have a good target for it. They will go Cannahawk 1, and of course chain Cannahawk 2 as well, putting that copy of the Fusion monster back into their graveyard. From this position, they're going to go ahead and add a Ritual Steeds, then go for Bond into Ulti Retiari. They'll activate the effect of Ulti Retiari, and then normal summon this copy of Cannahawk they added, activating its effect again for another Lara, Apelio, in order to boost the attack. Go to the battle phase. Here's a Fiend Griefing into a Morella. From this position, we have the capacity to use the effect of our Magic Colloidal Soul in the graveyard to summon itself out, and then afterwards we can go ahead and activate its effect to Xyz summon and make ourselves a copy of Ninja Shadow Mosquito. We will rise to full height in order to force our opponent into it. This does win the game, but our opponent tags out their Nochio Drago in battle phase, which means instead we're going to put the hallucination counter on the Ulti Retiari, which is going to do 62 to them, not lethal. This is pretty devastating because we had put ourselves into a position where this kind of had to work to win the game. They'll go Flame Banshee here in order to go ahead and grab a copy of Nemesis Flag, and they also get to end on a copy of Thunder Dragon Colossus. Isn't this cool? I'm glad this is all still legal. They'll go Corridor targeting this Fiendsmith, and then afterwards, of course, down comes T-Drag. They'll make a copy of SP Little Knight and use it to banish our Transaction Rollback. Dang, I was hoping they'd forget. We'll draw for turn. That's an interesting one. We're going to go for a copy of SP Little Knight of our own and go to the battle phase. They will Steeds, will SP Little Knight. They will SP Little Knight as well, and oh god, I think we found ourselves in a losing position suddenly. That copy of Ninja Shadow Mosquito is going to the graveyard. We'll go Trap Tantalizing Tune in main 2 and set a copy of IDP, at which point I think we do have to scoop them up. Finally, we wouldn't be doing that grass justice if we didn't play it in what I expect to be its new home, Tierliament. This deck has the benefit of having enough extenders to be able to forego hand traps entirely, making it the only deck that can play both grass and go second. Because we're on such a high deck count, we're also playing a bunch of cards we wouldn't be otherwise, including a pretty sizable Shadow package, but the payoffs remain immense. In fact, we are jamming Budget Beatrice in here as well. Let's get Pilgrim Reaping. We are playing, of course, 2 copies of the Bestial Lubellion, 3 Tier Cash, 3 Danger Nessie, double Druis Worm, 1 Magnuma, 1 Saronir, 1 Baldrake, 1 Unchained Soul of Shyama, 3 Fiendsmith, a Shadow Beast and Squamata, a Shiren, triple Rhinoheart, Mudora and Keldo, triple Perulia, Havnus and Jackalope, triple Ash Blossom, and Merly and Lurie. For spells, we're on that Grasslook screener, 1 copy of Grief, triple Tactics Thrust, triple Foolish Burial Goods, triple Fiendsmith Tractus, a Called by the Grave, triple Crossout Designator, double Tierliament Scream, 1 Branded Regained, triple Pellerino, and 1 Trivi Karma, alongside 3 copies of Tierliament Celiac. In the extra, we're on Requiem, IP Masquerena, Moon of the Closed, Heaven, Fiendsmith Sequentia, Sprite Sprint, SP Little Knight, Time Thief Redoer, Pilgrim Reaper, Mud Dragon of the Swamp, Winda, Garura, Necroquip, Princess, Aerial Eater, Dragus Depelia, and Kaleidoheart. So with that, let's jump into a game. Our match is up against Voiceless Voice. You can see they have 2 hand traps and I guess full combo, sort of. We do have Grasslook Screener though, so let's see what Tierliament can do when allowed to mill 20. We'll go for that Grasslook Screener, milling a whole bunch of really nice cards, including a Scream and a Squamata and a Havnus. We'll activate the effect of the Havnus in order to shuffle back the Rhinoheart and the Sheeran and get a copy of Kaleidoheart on board immediately. Then we will go ahead and grab a card as the beast resolves. We'll go for Foolish Burial Goods here in order to send a Trivi Karma, then Trivi Karma effect in order to grab the field spell. We will go for the effect of the Pellerino in order to grab a Rhinoheart, and then we will Saronir, targeting our Squamata so we can summon it. Next, we're going to go for the Bestial Lubellion into Kashtira. We will activate the effect of the Tierliament Kashtira, prompting an effect Veiler from our opponent. That's completely fine. Let's make Moon into Requiem, into Fiendsmith. What a cool thing we get to do. We'll go Requiem, target the Fiendsmith, and then afterwards we'll go into a copy of Necroquip. We'll activate the Graveyard effect of the Fiendsmith, and then we will overlay for a Pilgrim Reaper. Let's keep milling. Down comes the Infinite Impermanence. Okay, sheesh. I just want to show off the new card. We'll go Shyama, target our copy of Kaleidoheart, and guess what? Kaleidoheart's also an extender. We'll summon it and send a copy of Merly to the graveyard, then trigger the Merly in order to shuffle herself and the Danger Nessie for a copy of Garura. Those 2 to the graveyard for an IP. Let's draw a card, and we'll normal summon the Rhinoheart. Finally, setting this copy of Shiren, which we have not yet activated, shuffling back a couple of cards for our window. We'll set 1 and pass to our opponent here. They'll draw for turn. A 4-card hand is probably not going to do this, but they're welcome to try. They're going to begin with a copy of Saphira. We will let that resolve, and we'll let the summon resolve as well, because boy, it is really difficult to imagine this working in a world where they only get 1 summon. We do trade for this copy of Soravis here. We will go for the effect of the Masquerena for an SP Little Knight, and afterwards we will trigger the effect of the SP Little Knight in order to banish the Skull Guardian. They do get to go low. They'll activate the effect in order to set the cage. They'll go Barrier of the Voiceless Voice to grab a copy of Saphira, but then they have to pass, and we should be able to just switch everyone to attack position and kill them. We'll go Druis Worm for good measure to banish the ritual monster in the graveyard, and they'll scoop him up. So we're back with the decks. Let's do the pros and cons. First, a lot of these decks are already comfortable playing a high number of cards. Obviously, a strategy like Paleozoic just needs a critical mass of traps, and more options take precedence over hitting the same cards consistently. This is an easy slot in there. 2, it gives decks that are likely to be interrupted at a critical choke point like Noid a thrust target that literally just wins them the game on the spot. And 3, God, it is so fun to resolve into an established board with no spell negate. You mill like 40 versus Snake Eyes. And the cons. 1, the non-engine. The inner workings of these decks are so absolutely inflexible that you really don't get to play the 50% composition of hand traps that better decks do. 2 is Ash Blossom, still being played and still hoses you. And 3, at the end of the day, you are dedicating an entire main deck strategy to a one of you can only find so many of the time. All in all, while I've liked doomsaying about this card, I think more likely than not it's going to be a consistent feature of branded decks and strategies already playing 60 and not a lot else. So that's that. These 10-minute testings are subsidized by, and occasionally suggested by, my patrons. So I'm going to rattle off the names of some of the higher tier ones right now. Thank you all so much. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. Slifer274, Elena Tincher, Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, Ali, Brett Henry, Canner, Seaweed, Darkmaster Zork, Derpin Dragon, Devin Senpai, DJ Elefante, FPS Lord Derp, Gravity, John Piet, Juan Cruz Avila Zati, Night Mary, Legal Rights, Lockstone, Luis Hernandez, Master of Faster, Matthew M. Derezzo, MBT Play Madolce, Mike Carlotti, N54 Lionheart, Nebula Yu-Gi-Oh!, Project Mercury, Rose Lapine, Troy Says By Erasure is Gay, Vincent Storm, Who's Nick, Wonder Waffle, Your Pot of Greed Does What, and Yuki.